This is step 11 of the 14 steps found in the art of storytelling. It is entitled Eliminating Needless Details. Well, the storytellers found this one difficult because their story is already pretty small. And just because they're professional at this, they haven't added a lot of needless details. Still, it's an important step because we have to make room for the description that comes next. So let's just jump right in there and see how well they do.
The rain was falling on the rocky beach as the mother crab and her son scrambled over the stones. She noticed that her boy was walking sideways, as most crabs do. And she said, "Oh, Jimmy, Jimmy, son of mine, why do you walk sideways like that? You should always walk straight forward, with your toes pointed out." Jimmy replied, "Oh, Suki, Suki, mother of mine, would you please show me how to do it? I'd really like to learn." And so the mother crab tried and tried and tried to walk forward, but she couldn't do it. She could only walk sideways, just like her son. And the boy said, "Oh, Suki, Suki, mother of mine, you didn't point your toes out." "Oh, Jimmy, Jimmy, son of mine, I will try, and I will show you what happens." She pointed her toes out and fell flat on her face as she rose from the ground, dusted herself off, and composed herself with dignity. She said, "Jimmy, Jimmy, son of mine, remember who you are. You are a crab. You have 2 claws and 8 legs. Your legs weren't made to walk forward. Your legs are made so that you could move best side to side."
The mice were meeting to discuss the problem of the cat. While they were meeting, many ideas came up, but no one came up with that perfect idea until one young mouse stood up and said, "Well, the problem is simple, and the solution is profound. And that's that we simply need to put a bell on the cat." Well, everyone thought that was a great idea until one of the older mice stood up and said that it was a good idea, but the question remains, who is going to put the bell on the cat? The moral of the story is, it's easy to think of great ideas. Not always as easy to not always as easy to fulfill them, to accomplish them.
The bare bones of this story in its simplest form, it's a very short little story. It's the story of a gnat who leaves the swarm, is out by himself, and he becomes tired, so he sits on the tips of the horn of a bull. After he's rested a while, he decides to fly on, but figures, maybe I should apologize to this bull first, and he says, "Well, I guess you're happy to see me leave." And the bull, barely even looking up from his lunch there, says, "I didn't even realize you were there."
Once there was a very needy dog. He came into the village and saw the butcher had certain meats hanging up outside. So he went over and gave him his puppy dog eyes, and the butcher gave him a nice sized soup bone. He took that soup bone and he traveled along, thinking how lucky he was to have that soup bone. But as he was crossing over the wooden bridge, he happened to look down, and he could see there in the water was another dog, and he too had a big soup bone in his mouth. Now, to his eyes, that bone looked much bigger than his own, and he had to have it for himself. So he dove deep down into that water, and as he did, that delicious soup bone floated away. When he came out of the water, he was as pathetic as he was before, for now he did not have his original soup bone, and he did not have the one that belonged to that other dog. I guess it just goes to prove that whatever it is greedy. Or something like that.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
It is very foolish. Sometimes it's very foolish to be greedy. I thought about looking at himself down in the water and seeing, you know, all of his fur and probably algae and everything else, making him look like a, you know, a fool, and thinking, oh yeah, there you go.
He was a miser. Every morning he would get up and he would go out under the tree and dig the same hole. And he would dig up a tin box filled with his gold coins. There was a thief that had been watching him and guessed this miser was hiding gold in this tin box. And he snuck in the night and stole it. The next day the miser returned, dug up the box to find it empty. He cried out, my gold, my gold. He tore his clothes and he tore it and pulled at his hair, and a passerby heard him and said, what is the matter? He said, someone has stolen my gold. The passerby said, you buried it here in the yard. Why didn't you keep it in the house where you could use it when you needed it? The miser said, I would never spend my gold. With that, the passerby simply threw a stone into the hole and covered it up and said, the stone is as good as gold in this hole, for unless you use the possessions, they're no value to you.
There was a father. He had 2 sons, and the 3 of them worked the vineyard, but the father thought the sons might not work as hard after he died. And since he was approaching his death, he told them he had buried a treasure somewhere on the grounds of the vineyard. So the sons began to work the ground very hard looking for this treasure. And they never did find the treasure, but their crops improved each year because of the work they did on the soil.